Napoleon Bonaparte conquered most of Europe, crowned himself Emperor of France, and rewrote the legal code of an entire continent. He is, by almost every measure, one of the most French figures in recorded history. Statues of him line the boulevards of Paris. His tomb at Les Invalides draws 1 million visitors a year. The French legal system still runs on his code. However, in 2011, a team of scientists opened a 19th century reliquary in a small French museum, extracted DNA from the man's preserved beard hairs, and discovered something that flipped 2 centuries of assumptions on their head. Napoleon's paternal bloodline did not trace back to France. It did not trace back to Italy. It traced to somewhere nobody expected. And a nickname buried deep in his family tree had been whispering the answer for over 500 years. Dominique Vivant Denon was the first director of the Louvre under Napoleon. He was also a collector of, well, unusual things. After Napoleon died on the island of St. Helena in 1821, Denon assembled a reliquary, a decorated box of relics. Inside, he placed a lock of Napoleon's hair, 3 of his beard hairs, a tooth from Voltaire, and the beard of King Henry IV. That box eventually ended up at the Bertrand Museum in the city of Chateauroux, France, where it sat quietly for nearly 200 years. No one thought to test any of it. Then, in 2011, molecular anthropologist Gerard Lucat got permission to examine those 3 beard hairs. His team at the Institute of Molecular Anthropology in Paris placed them under a scanning electron microscope and found something remarkable. Traces of shaving soap were still clinging to the strands. These hairs had not been contaminated or tampered with in almost 2 centuries. For a geneticist, that was like finding a sealed time capsule. They were perfect for DNA extraction. Using a 37-marker YSTR profile and a deep-clade test, Lucat's team at the Institute of Molecular Anthropology in Paris identified Napoleon's Y-DNA haplogroup. The result was EM34. That is where things got strange. Haplogroup EM34 originated roughly 7,000 years ago along the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea, somewhere between modern-day Egypt and Turkey. Today, this genetic marker is found at its highest concentrations in Jordan, where 31% of men carry it. Among Ethiopian Amhara, 24% carry it. Among Ethiopian Jews, 14%. It also appears across Israel, the Palestinian territories, and Lebanon. In Europe, it shows up mainly around the southern Mediterranean. In Sicily, 7%. In Sardinia, 4%. Among Corsicans, the population Napoleon was born into, only 1.4% carry this haplogroup. Around 10% of Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jewish populations share it as well. So Napoleon's direct paternal line did not come from Western Europe at all. It came from the ancient Near East. That is a significant genetic outlier, even for a Corsican. But one test on 200-year-old beard hairs isn't enough to change history. Scientists needed confirmation from a living relative. They found Prince Charles Napoleon Bonaparte. He was born in 1950, and he was a 4th-generation descendant of Napoleon's younger brother Jerome. Jerome was born in 1784, and he fathered the line that continues to this day. When they compared Charles's DNA to the beard hair results, the profiles matched, confirmed as EM34. The findings were published in the Journal of Molecular Biology Research on December 31, 2011, and the team didn't stop there. The IGNIA Institute in Switzerland launched a worldwide Napoleon DNA project and tested 47 people who claimed to be descended from the Bonaparte family. The genetic trail kept confirming the same lineage. Now, here's where genetics and history collide in a way that gave even seasoned historians a chill. The Bonaparte family can be traced back centuries to the northern Italian town of Sarzana, in the Liguria region near La Spezia. A document from 1322 confirms a Giovanni Bonaparte di Sarzana owned property near the Church of St. Andrew. His descendants served as mayors, notaries, and local officials for generations. In 1397, Giovanni married Isabella Calandrini, a cousin of a future cardinal. The family had roots and standing, but one of the later descendants, Francesco Bonaparte, left Sarzana for Corsica around 1490 to work as a mercenary crossbowman for the Genoese Bank of St. George. In 1493, he married the daughter of the local Genoese representative in Ajaccio. They called him Il Mauro, meaning the Moor. Sarzana sat on the Mediterranean coast, and during the Middle Ages it was repeatedly attacked and occupied by Saracen forces who controlled the sea lanes. The EM34 haplogroup finding suddenly made that old nickname genetic fact, not just folklore. Napoleon's male line ancestors almost certainly arrived in Italy centuries ago, either as Phoenician or Greek traders as far back as 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, or as Saracen conquerors during the Islamic expansion across the Mediterranean. Napoleon himself seemed to know something. He once told his personal physician on St. Helena, "My most remote ancestor, who inhabited Toscane, had the principles that I profess." He never explained what he meant by that. The paternal line was not the only surprise. Lucat also analyzed Napoleon's mitochondrial DNA, which traces the maternal side. He found a mutation at position 16,184 in the hypervariable segment, where a C nucleotide had flipped to a T. In a database of 37,000 sequences, that exact mutation appeared in just 3 other people. That is 3 in 37,000, an extremely rare occurrence. The same mutation was later confirmed in hair samples from Napoleon's mother, Letizia Ramolino, and his youngest sister, Caroline. It was inherited through the maternal line, making it essentially a genetic fingerprint unique to Napoleon's family. If you're finding this interesting, hit subscribe. I unpack the hidden stories behind history's biggest names every single week. Now, let's talk about what Napoleon's DNA can actually settle. This is a question the French have been arguing about for decades, and it is wilder than you would expect. Napoleon died on St. Helena on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51. He was buried on the island. 19 years later, in 1840, a French delegation exhumed the body and shipped it back across the Atlantic. On December 15, 1840, a massive funeral procession carried the coffin from the Arc de Triomphe down the Champs-Élysées to Les Invalides, where it was eventually placed in a red quartzite sarcophagus. That tomb draws roughly 1 million visitors every year. But in 1969, a journalist named Georges Rétif de la Bretonne published a book claiming the British had secretly swapped Napoleon's corpse with that of his butler Cipriani, who had died on the island in 1818. According to Rétif, Napoleon's actual remains were transferred to an unmarked grave under Westminster Abbey. The theory resurfaced in 2000 with a new book by Bruno Roy Henry and picked up media coverage all over again. Most serious historians dismiss this entirely. The eyewitness accounts from the 1840 exhumation are detailed, consistent, and written by people who had known Napoleon personally. Multiple witnesses confirmed the body was well preserved and clearly recognizable. Still, the rare mitochondrial DNA mutation at 0.00008% frequency offers a definitive way to end the debate forever. Exhume the body. Test a single hair for the position 16,184C to T variant, and the answer is immediate. Nobody has done it yet. Napoleon's DNA also put another 200-year-old theory to rest. In 1961, a chemical analysis published in Nature found high levels of arsenic in his hair, sparking decades of speculation that British guards had slowly poisoned him during his exile on St. Helena. It became one of the most persistent conspiracy theories in European history. But when Italian scientists at the National Institute of Nuclear Physics tested hair samples from different periods of his life, including childhood, his time in exile, and the day of his death, the arsenic levels were equally high across all of them. His hair contained up to 100 times more arsenic than a modern sample, but so did many people from that era. Arsenic was everywhere in the 19th century, in green-dyed wallpapers, in medicines, in food preservatives. Napoleon was not poisoned. He was simply a man of his time. His autopsy pointed to stomach cancer, and that tracks too. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, died at 38 of the same disease. The most recent chapter in Napoleon's genetic saga came in October 2025. In Vilnius, Lithuania, researchers excavated a mass grave containing the remains of 2,000 to 3,000 people, buried alongside Napoleonic military buttons and belt buckles. These were soldiers from the catastrophic 1812 retreat from Russia. A team led by Remy Barbieri at the University of Tartu in Estonia and Nicolas Rascovan at the Pasteur Institute in Paris extracted DNA from the teeth of 13 of those soldiers. They pried the teeth open, scraped out dental pulp, and fed it into a DNA sequencing machine. They expected to find typhus and trench fever, the diseases long blamed for decimating the Grande Armee during that brutal winter retreat. They found neither. Instead, they discovered two pathogens nobody suspected: Salmonella enterica, which causes paratyphoid fever, and Borrelia recurrentis, a bacterium spread by body lice that triggers relapsing fever. The study, published in Current Biology, suggests Napoleon's army was fighting a broader and more devastating range of disease than anyone previously understood. As Barbieri put it, just reading historical accounts made it impossible to suspect these two pathogens. Only DNA could reveal what was really killing those soldiers. If this video changed how you think about ancestry and identity, please subscribe so you will not miss the next video.